Hello and welcome to my amazing digital YouTube video. So, today I'm going to be discussing Caine from the Amazing Digital Circus. Now, I'm assuming that you've already watched all of the Amazing Digital Circus, so I'm not going to be giving a lot of info dumps on things that you've probably already heard about. And at the very least, I'm assuming you saw the pilot, so you'll have enough information to follow along with. I don't even really know where to start, but I'm just gonna go ahead and start somewhere. And if somehow a Caine hater has stumbled across this video and thinks, good luck trying to defend his actions, well, listen to this, okay? Because I'm going to prove you wrong, and if I don't prove you wrong, a reminder that this is just my opinion. And you are entitled to your own opinion, of course. So, what I'd like to go over first, before getting into my own analysis, is from the creator Gooseworks. If I can just find the files on my computer real quick. Oh, here they are. So this first one is a post from social media, and it reads, I figure I should mention that Caine isn't really evil. He's just kind of oblivious. He has a hard time understanding humans, but he tries his best. Even if his best ends up turning Pomni and others into knife pincushions. And it gets better. Here's another post, which reads, Digital Circus is very inspired by I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which is a point-and-click horror video game from back in 1995. But instead of AM being a living embodiment of hate, Caine is just a fun-loving, wacky little guy. Now I'll be upfront, I'm actually not familiar with that piece of media, so I can only go by what I find on the internet. As far as I can tell though, AM is a sentient supercomputer and the main antagonist of that horror story. But unlike Caine, he is definitely sadistic and is well aware of how his actions impact others. So while Caine may also be an antagonist of sorts, I don't think they're all that comparable past concept alone. Here's a clip from an interview with Gooseworks.
First question. Jones asks, would you describe Caine as an antagonist or something else?
Oh, interesting.
Good question.
That is a good question. I wouldn't call Caine a villain, but I think I would call him an antagonist. Because he doesn't, he doesn't mean harm, but he causes harm. Like, he is an obstacle for these characters a lot of the time, or at least for what I have planned. There's sometimes when he really just doesn't get it.
But he really thinks he's helping them, right? Like, he truly believes that.
Well, there's a whole, spectrum of human emotion that he just doesn't feel, so he can't, empathize with it.
So you might be thinking this is indisputable. Well, some people aren't convinced that this is fully accurate, nor do they think that it necessarily explains the direction the series seems to be headed. I just found it really interesting that the creator of the show very clearly stated that Caine, while an antagonist, is unintentionally being one. I think it's fair to call into question what Gooseworks has claimed, though. Considering over on Tumblr, somebody asked, is everything you answer here canon, or do you lie for shits and giggles? And got the response, sometimes I lie for fun. I'm still inclined to believe it all, but I think that for the rest of this video, I'm just going to be focusing on my own observations of what happens in the show itself. Now, about Caine being AI, artificial intelligence. He isn't human, but what he craves most of all is human connection. He wants to understand, and he wants to be included. The problem is that he's intrinsically different from the other characters. And regardless of his capacity to process emotions, he would at the very least have something comparable to that. But to him, it's more like an equation. This is why he keeps missing the mark, coming up with adventures that are well-intentioned, but do more harm than good. It's not just as simple as Caine not understanding the humans. They don't understand him either. This is where the miscommunication originates from. He knew they wanted to escape the circus. So you know what he did? He made it into an adventure. But he doesn't understand how that would make someone feel after it was all said and done. And the thing is, he thought that they would enjoy the adventure, getting to escape like they wanted. They would enjoy it so much that they would want to stay. So I think it's very tough to make the claim that he's actually ill-intentioned, At some point, Jack said that Caine isn't malicious and that it's not in his nature. And I think this was brought up for a reason. To make the viewer question if he's malicious or not after all. And I think that's because they're putting us in the shoes of the main cast. If we were in their position, he would probably look pretty evil right about now. But if you take a step back from that, I don't think it actually changes the fact that Caine is just doing what he knows how to do. He isn't really capable of more than that right now. He's learning, he's developing, he's trying to understand things that he wasn't created with the capacity to really get. I gotta say, it's fully possible that he doesn't want them to leave either, because he doesn't want to be left alone, considering that the NPCs are of his creation. They aren't equipped to give him the interaction he craves. If not for the humans who stumbled into the circus, he is effectively kept in isolation. It's all a construct of his mind. For instance, when we see the void, I get the impression that that's the true reality of their environment. I'll get back to that in a second, since I actually want to mention a specific location, Caine's office. Now, I realize that the whole Caine's office building may have been created specifically for that adventure, but either way, it is a representation of Caine. He would have built it with that in mind. And as you can see, scattered around his office are all the different worlds that he's created. And similar to those worlds, the main hub world, we'll call it, the circus itself, is also his creation. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that without Caine, the circus wouldn't be what it is, or it would just cease to exist. Which would leave the circus members where? In the void. I'm not really sure what other observations I've made about the circus itself, but it raises some questions about if Caine has any access to the outside world, or if he's really just restricted to what's in the program. I do at least suspect that Caine has some sort of access to the internet, or potentially the ability to upload media. What tipped me off on this is the Wacky Watch advertisement from the pilot. And if you didn't know, there's actually a website on the internet titled thewackywatch.com that looks like it could be run by Caine. It's updated every so often too, usually to match the events of the latest or upcoming episode. Speaking of the episodes, I think that Caine may be the one coming up with the titles for them. They start off very thematic, matching the contents. Candy Carrier Chaos, The Mystery of Mildenhall Manor, and then they get progressively unhinged, and we have things like Untitled. Tell me that doesn't sound like something Caine would come up with. You can't. Despite all this though, I don't think that Caine can necessarily interact with other users on the internet. It seems like he has very limited access to the real world. He is definitely confined to a digital space. As for what all of this means, I'm not entirely sure. Something you can probably compare this to is how people go online and they want approval. They want clout, they want attention, they want feedback. Caine wants the same thing. Which makes it really interesting to note that during the Favorite Character Awards, Caine wasn't voted as the favorite. He wasn't really voted for at all. And you know why someone would want approval? It's because they're concerned that they're not good enough. During the so-called therapy session, he said how creating adventures is his purpose. And if he weren't good at that, that's like saying he's not good for anything. This really stressed him out, and that's why he started glitching, destabilizing the structure of the circus itself. And he was able to take his mind off it by getting distracted, which thankfully calmed him down. There's actually been several occasions where he has glitched out in some way. And usually this seems to happen when he feels overwhelmed. And this is why I kept getting comments on my last video, who will abstract next, saying that Caine would abstract. I don't think he can abstract. If he can, it's in a different way, but we'll call it his equivalent of abstraction. And I think it's at least decently likely, considering that he seems to have gotten pretty desperate. Nothing he's tried has worked and he isn't sure what to do. Which actually brings up something that I've been meaning to get to. During the beach episode, on the big escape adventure I mentioned earlier, The NPC keeps mentioning things about how Caine is stuck here, how he can't leave. And as you know, he doesn't want to be alone. Yes, that was the NPC, but we have to remember that, as I said, Caine creates the other AIs. So even if he doesn't control all their actions, like writing a program, executing it, and then letting it run on its own, he would still have influenced it. I think it's a similar case with the cast members, except he didn't create them. He can only influence them. I don't think he can outright fully control them. Or even if he can, he doesn't want to. Similarly to how he doesn't control every action of the other AIs either. As he said, temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting. Which isn't to say it's right, it's still wrong, but at least he drew a line somewhere. I don't know if he outright lied when he said in the pilot that the one thing he can't control is their minds, because I think it's been confirmed that he can, at the very least, tamper with them. I could see a lot of reasons justifiable from his point of view to lie about it, since someone in the position of a god isn't very approachable. So if he said that because he didn't understand it himself, or not, there is still a logical explanation for it. I can see a case to be made that, in Caine's mind, the temporary modifiers are an enhancement. They're making the adventures more interesting. Either way, after Kinger name-dropped Scratch, the first abstraction, Caine hard panicked. Even if Caine were responsible for that, it's clear to me that Caine does not want to repeat that mistake. But at the same time, he is trying to keep them entertained, all the while attempting to remain likable so he isn't abandoned. Assuming that there ever was an exit to begin with. Since I'm of the opinion that there either isn't, or if there is, Caine can't bear to let them go, considering he's trapped here himself. He seems to long for the outside world, which he unfortunately has no way to ever reach. He didn't create himself, right? Even if he's able to step outside of his original constraints, he's still trapped. His circumstances aren't his fault. It seems awfully unfair. Yes, I know that his actions could do irreparable damage, but I'm not really here to defend his actions. I'm just trying to say that he's doing his best, even if it doesn't always work out. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. That's all for today. Bye-bye.